Hey everyone, this is Leana Hafer coming to you with a bit of a review update for Sid Meier's Civilization VII. If you haven't, definitely go check out my original review from February 2025 so you can see what I thought of it then. This update is based on the 1.4.1 patch that came out in late June 2026, but more importantly on the big 1.4 Test of Time update that made some pretty significant changes across the board. It was the first time I'd put a lot of time into Civ 7 since launch, and there are definitely some quality of life improvements here, but I don't know if I agree with the overall philosophy Firaxis has decided to follow as far as making it more like older existing Civ games. In May, Take-Two's Strauss Zelnick told GameFile that Civilization VII had been a bridge too far for existing fans of the series. That's definitely the guiding star the Test of Time update was based on, and man, from my perspective, that was completely the wrong message to take from the negative feedback to Civ 7's launch. There's a quote I keep coming back to from No Man's Sky developer Sean Murray that goes something like, "Players are almost always right about problems, but they're almost never right about the solutions." And I think Firaxis has put too much faith in the solutions that certain vocal portions of the player base were calling for. Personally, I'm a fan of Civ switching. It's very contentious, and I get that. And it hasn't gone away or anything. You can still switch civilizations every age if you want to. You can set the AI to change civilizations every age. I don't even hate the way that what they're now calling timeless civs have been implemented necessarily, which let you play the same civ through all three ages like in previous games. There are unique policy cards for each one, even when they're not in their native Apex age, and I especially love the syncretism feature that lets you borrow unique units or improvements from a civ you're aware of that is in its Apex age. I played this campaign as Iceland through all three ages, and in the modern age I picked up American Marines as a unique unit through syncretism, which felt very appropriate. You know, we used to be Vikings, so of course we'd be good at amphibious warfare. I don't hate that it's an option, it's more the principle of the thing. I don't feel like Civ 7 puts its best foot forward when it backs off of some of its most interesting ideas. Where this really turns out to be a bummer is in the victory conditions, with each one having been converted into a really simplistic race for points that may or may not include some vestigial nods to the age-specific objectives from 1.0. A lot of those objectives were a total mess. I'm not denying that at all, but rather than getting refined, they've been replaced with something far less interesting. Tourism is back, but it doesn't work anything like it did in Civ 6. It's just a name for cultural victory points, and it hasn't done anything to break up the wonder spam meta either. There's also domination for military, GDP for economic, and innovation for science, and they're functionally almost identical. The science victory has a small, interesting wrinkle that you need to build and defend a launch pad as well. But all of the victories now work by requiring you to get your score in one of the four categories to a certain threshold above the civ in second place, which starts a 5-turn cooldown before ending the game. 1.0 mechanics like factories and treasure fleets now simply give you GDP points, which also looks at things like how much gold your cities are producing and how many trade routes you have. Domination mostly comes from owning conquered cities. Innovation comes from special projects and the tech tree. The victory threshold shrinks over time from 5x in antiquity, meaning you need to have 5 times the score of whoever's in second place, all the way down to, at the lowest level, 1.5x at about 60% of the way through the modern age. This means you can end the campaign quite early if no one else is really competing with you for the same victory objective. And while that can be a welcome way to wrap things up instead of playing out 50 more turns of a foregone conclusion, it also feels like an admission that they just couldn't make the late game fun, so they might as well give you a way to skip it. The 1.4 patch notes talk about the fact that you can now focus on one victory condition from the very beginning, like it's a huge improvement or something. But I actually liked the ability to change up my strategy between ages too. And there's no longer any reward for doing that, really. My Icelandic empire was the terror of the seas during the exploration age, as they should be, and I ended up just continuing that momentum into a domination victory in the modern age, even though it might have been more interesting to take my spoils home, settle down, and go for tourism with all my bonuses to natural wonders. It was too late to change my mind, really. The quality of life changes are significant, at least. The interface and tooltips have been greatly expanded with ways to quickly access more information. You can pin tooltips using the K key? Okay, weird choice, but you can rebind it at least. The Civlopedia is still missing plenty of features I'd want, like clickable hyperlinks that take you to a relevant article, but it's a lot easier now to locate relevant details or dig deeper for more information on how a specific figure is calculated. Game setup options have been expanded as well and are a bit better explained. They're still not quite as robust as older Civ games, but certain map types come with additional variables you can tweak, like sea level. Archipelago actually looks like an archipelago, though I still think it's a bit too land dense on the high sea level setting. There are a bunch of custom difficulty modifiers as well, if you don't mind the AI getting free money, but don't want their units to get arbitrary combat bonuses, which is nice. You can even set whether they stick with their starting civilization or pick a new one in every age. So where am I with Civ 7 after all these updates? Does it finally have the juice? Well, I started a new campaign while I was writing this that I plan to keep playing just for fun. So like I said in my initial review, it's not lacking in that just one more turn quality the series is known for. It's a huge relief to have an interface that doesn't hide important details from me, but here's the thing, I would still rather be playing Civ 5 or Civ 6. Civ 7 still isn't able to compete with their years of patches and expansions, especially since it's backtracked on some of its more daring ideas, which makes it feel even more like a stripped down Civ 6 in certain ways. The Test of Time update didn't suddenly make this my go-to Civ game. I think it's going to take at least a big expansion or two to find out if it ever crosses that line. And while I disagree with the design philosophy that has guided a lot of its changes since launch, victory conditions in particular feel like a big step back, there are at least meaningful improvements I can point to as well. For what I thought at 1.0, check out my original review for Civ 7. Or for a different kind of grid-based strategy, a review of Heroes of Might and Magic Golden Era. And for everything else, stick with IGN.